Welcome into this IdahoSports.com special edition of the Prepcast presented by Steve's Hometown Auto. We are talking today about the state track and field championships coming up a little bit later on this week. Brandon Baney alongside the pride of South Fremont High, our own IdahoSports.com broadcaster, Alec Pope. Alec, how you doing?
Good. I don't know if I'm the pride, maybe like the vain pride, but it's good to be here. I love track season, and I love talking about sports. So it's good to be here, and it's such a fun time of year.
Yeah, real quick, just give us your track background.
So both of my parents have coached track at different times, few different schools in Idaho. In high school, I did track, I think 3 of my 4 years. I was a jumper and a sprinter. I was kind of decent, I was all right. I went to state once my senior year. Relays really was my favorite part. I'll tell you this, I love watching track, but I despise competing in it. I love playing football and basketball, but I got so nervous for a race. I couldn't handle it, but that's why I love the field events, but it's a lot more fun. I don't get nearly as nervous, I noticed, when I'm just watching. So
absolutely. Well, we're going to talk some of the top track athletes and also some of the top field athletes. We're going to go through every classification, 5A all the way down to 1A. We're going to hit it all today. Events, athletes, teams to watch. And for those of you that are watching us live on our YouTube channel or our Twitch stream or on our Facebook page, thanks for being with us. If you have an athlete or a team you want to give a shout out to or somebody you want us to talk about, let us know in the comments. We'll put your comment up on the screen and we'll dive in and talk about it. I figured the easiest way to start this, Alec, would be to start at the lowest level and work our way up to the highest level. So we're going to start with the 1As, if that's all right with you. Sound good?
Absolutely.
Okay. And I wanted to start with the lowest levels because I think those are the most wide open in terms of team competitions. So let's start on the 1A side. We'll go with the boys first. Your district champs from each of the districts in the Class 1A level. We had Cami from District 1 and 2. We had Victory Charter from District 3, Cary from District 4, and Butte County from District 5 and 6. I would say Butte County probably opened the most eyes. They piled up 182 points in winning the district title. But when you look at this field with the 4 district champs, Cami, Victory Charter, Cary, Butte County, is it one of those 4 that wins the team title, or is it somebody who didn't win a district championship?
I think, the difficult thing about making this kind of prediction is that track it's such a democratic sport. So the points are leveled out in a way that's so much different than other sports. I think probably my favorite going in is going to be Cary right now on the men's side. What I look for is, can you have top 3 or 4 place finishers and how many events? And so when you go through, you look from sprints to jumps to relays. I think Cary is a really well-balanced team that way.
Well, any opinion you have today, Alec, we're going to hold you to it. All right. And there's going to be heck to pay if you're not correct on these.
Well, I won't be correct on all of them. I'll be happy if I get a few things right.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's talk about those Cary boys. They had multiple athletes win multiple events at districts. I think right away of Hunter Smith, the great senior who is awesome in the hurdles races. Sawyer Meacham did really well, winning the 800 and the triple jump. And then also a sophomore, Riley Morey, who won the 2 and the 4. This, like you said, this is a Cary team that's pretty talented.
Yeah, absolutely. I look at this Cary team, and you've got they're 4x4 team. They're great in the relays. 4x4, they have the 3rd best time so far this year. In the 4x2, they got the best time by 2 seconds. They've got a pretty good distance on second place Raft River, and then they're a very, very close 4th place in the 4x1 as well. And then down in the medley, they're first in a very close contest between them and Grace. So as far as the relays go, it could be Cary coming away with maybe 3 of those state championships from those individual relays, which is a lot of fun. Probably my favorite ones to watch.
Yeah, and I want to apologize, Sawyer Meacham from Cary, not Meacham, Meacham. So, but he'll be one to keep an eye on as well. You mentioned Raft River. They've got I don't know. They look like they've got potential, right? I think they could nip Cary in a couple of these events.
Yeah. I think they're so good, men and women, but I think especially in the women, we'll talk about that in a second. But the men, they have a couple of guys that I think can really make a difference. Ryan Spaeth, right now in the state, first in 1A in shot and discus both. So that guy alone could be bringing you home a whole lot of points. Other than that, one guy I'm going to be watching is London Kirk from Deary. I think he can really make some noise in the sprints. I think he's been peaking at the right time where his best times were in districts. And because of that, he comes in at first in the 200 and first in the 100 and first in the 200.
Yeah, I was going to mention London Kirk from Deary. Other individuals we're going to want to keep an eye on that boys' side. I think Idaho City has a great thrower in Trayton Nelson, who's been awesome in the shot put and discus all season long. He also batted cleanup for the Idaho City baseball team this year. Big power hitting first baseman. And he had to make the tough choice last week. Do I go to district track and compete or do I play with the baseball team? He decided to do track, ended up winning the shot and the disc at districts. And I think he's going to be a guy to keep an eye on. And then also, I think in the long distance races, it's going to be a nice battle. Ian Stockett is a senior from Victory Charter who's done really well all year, but Cole Wilkerson from Grace swept the 8, the 1600 and the 3200 at districts. So I think those distance races could be pretty good too. Yeah.
In the distance, I think Ian Stockett is probably the favorite. He comes in with the best times for the 1600 and the 3200. But I will say in the mile, it's been over a month since he's PR'd. So that's one thing you always want to look out for. You want to obviously get your PR at state would be the ideal. And weather affects your PRs and a lot of different factors. But pay attention to those because that really matters when people are getting those PRs. And the later in the season, typically the better.
Yeah, you want to be peaking at the right time, that's for sure. All right, let's switch over to the 1A girls. Your 4 district champs were Logos, Tri-Valley, Raft River, and Butte County. And when you look at the amount of points each team scored, it was pretty even. Tri-Valley had 107 at their meet. You had Logos at 165. Raft River had 176.5. And then Butte County, just like on the boys' side, they piled up 194 total points. Which team stands out to you on the girls' side in 1A?
I think it's really clear for the girls' side. It's Raft River. In 10 different events that will be at the state championship meet, they have somebody in first or second place, somebody in the top 2 of 10 different events. That includes in 3 relays, they have the top team, and then the 4th one, I don't think they're going to be competing in. But wow, they have a lot of talented girls. I think especially you talk about the Christensen sisters. That's what I wanted to highlight. Gabriel and Carly Christensen, they're first and second in the 1600 and the 3200. So I think they might be led by those 2 sisters in points, but just a really well balanced team, Raft River.
Yeah, and they seem to trade off the Christiansens there at Raft River. Yeah, in terms of who wins, who takes second, that kind of stuff. Getting some comments in already. It's going to be athletes at higher levels. Let's go Connor Maloney, the sprinter from Skyline High up in Idaho Falls, and what a great athlete he is. We'll get to the 4As in just a little bit. And also we've got a shout out here to Kyson Gabrish from West Jefferson. They're a 2A program. So we'll get to those as soon as we wrap up the 1A, but thank you for watching. Thanks for giving your favorite athlete a shout out. And again, if you want to give a team or an athlete a shout out, or you want us to talk about somebody when we get to your classification level, just let us know in the comments, and that's what we're here for. Brandon Baney with Alec Pope. Okay, so let's talk about some others from Raft River. Another athlete that stood out to me was Libby Bowden. She's a sophomore, triple winner at districts, won the 100, the 200, and the long jump. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, she comes in with the top time to beat in the whole state in the 100 and the 200 off of those performances. And just a sophomore, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch those races. So, I mean, if you're as far as who can win the state championship as a team, Raft River, you've got with the Christensen sisters, you've got your distance taken care of. With Bowden, you're going to have your 100, 200. If she performs well, it's all but wrapped up. And then it's just a matter of getting other people in the right places, and just getting those peak performances.
Another name to watch in the sprints, I think, will be Cadence Beck, the sophomore from Highland up in Craigmont. And she was a triple winner, won the 1, the 2, and the 4. That's hard to do to win all 3 of those sprints.
Yeah, absolutely. One other that I'm going to be watching is Elia, I hope I can say this right, Uhlenkott from Prairie. She comes in first in the 100-meter hurdles, and then she's third right now, close third, in the 300-meter hurdles. She would not completely surprise me if she was able to come away with first place in both of those from Prairie.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the Uhlenkott name up in Prairie is very prominent, especially among girls high school athletics. Other athletes we're going to keep an eye on in the 1A girls competition. I think Garden Valley has a really good thrower, Gracie Castillo. She's just a sophomore. She won the shot put and discus at districts this past week. I think Emma Holland from Tri-Valley had an accomplished track career, and she's going to be running track at Eastern Oregon University next year. She was a triple winner. We talked about it's hard to win the 1, the 2, and the 4. It might be even more difficult to win the 800, the 1600, and the 3200. And she did all 3 of those at Tri-Valley's district meet as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Other thing, the jumps, I think at the top 3 or 4 in all of the jumps are going to be a lot of fun to watch. We mentioned Libby Bowden. She's right behind Addison Stanger from Murtaugh. Just the freshmen, so it's going to be freshman and sophomore who are the favorites to go back and forth in the long jump. And then Sarah Vanderwick, Riley Moore from Garden Valley and Mackey, respectively, in the triple jump. So, and they're really close. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch those. I think the top 3 or 4 placers in the jumps in this 1A girls competition are going to be close. It's going to be fun down the stretch as those girls push each other in those jumps.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch. I will say, don't count out Tri-Valley. Okay, they won the state volleyball championship this fall, won the state basketball title in the winter for girls, and a lot of those athletes are on this track and field team. So, Tri-Valley, I think if they get enough high placements, could be right in the mix as well. We're getting more comments in here. Some of the Idaho sports guys having fun. Scott Burton, of course, the athletic director at Jerome, and also one of our broadcasters, watching from the Jerome athletic office. And then this must be our boss, Paul Kingsbury, from the official IdahoSports.com account.
Yeah, I guess so. Also, my brother Micah works for Scott. Give quick shout out to Scott. Actually, he just got the athletic director, the large school athletic director of the year for District 4 in his very first year as athletic director. So good job to him. That's awesome.
Yeah, and we'll have plenty of guys to talk about from Jerome when we get to that 4A preview. Okay, so let's move on to the 2A classification. And this is another one that I think could be pretty intriguing. Let's start on the boys' side. Your district champs in 2A track were Orofino, Melba, Valley, Soda Springs, and Salmon. And really, I don't know. I had a hard time identifying one team I felt really good about, but what did you see?
Pretty similar. You look across, okay, who could win in any given event, and it's Melba, Napa Christian, Firth, Ryrie, Bear Lake. It seems like the top person or the top 2 or 3 are different for every event, and they're from different schools, which is a lot of fun. You get a lot of parity that way. I think it's gonna make a lot of more people in contention. I would also add that it's not necessarily just going to be the district champions that are in contention. That's one thing to watch out for in the 2A boys, is that you very well could see somebody who may have gotten second or in districts could be beating out some of these other district champions from different districts, because there's just so much talent, and it's spread out really well across the 2A.
Yeah, and we're going to have a really good case to illustrate that point when we talk about 3A, especially on the boys' side. There'll be a good example of that. So, yeah, you mentioned it. It's kind of a hodgepodge of really outstanding individuals. In the short sprints, Jacob Ankeny from Marcine has put up some really impressive times this year. I look at Salmon really performed well at their district meet. They've got a great distance runner in Jonathan Simmons. Who stands out to you when you look at individuals?
Those two, absolutely. I mean, it's hard not to. When you look at the sprints, so much fun. Ankeny, the 100, 200, and 400, he leads in all three of those. The only thing I'd add, little caveat, is that it's going to be over a month since Ankeny has hit his PR in those. He hasn't been quite as fast in districts or since then, so that'll be something to watch. One other to look out for, Kyle Christensen from Valley, just a sophomore. He comes in first in both the triple jump and the long, and so just as just a sophomore, he's got a pretty you got about a half a foot, maybe more than half a foot lead overall in triple jump, and then he's up by maybe 2 or 3 inches in long jump. So those are his, I guess, rankings coming in. But I think Kyle Christensen, just a sophomore from Valley, going to be a lot of fun to watch too.
Yeah, he won the 400, the long jump, and the triple jump at districts. And then Garrett Christensen, also from Valley, he was a triple winner as well. And again, he swept those distance races, the 8 and the 1600 and the 3200. So that'll be interesting to watch. Joe DeMasters from Wendell has done really well in the hurdles races this year. Reed Thomas is a junior from Morofino who's performed well in the shot and the discus. And Westside has a couple of good athletes. Bryler Shirtliff from Westside just seems to be good at every single sport he does, football, basketball, and now track. He won the 200 and the long jump at districts as well. So, yeah, I agree with you. 2A boys, I think, is going to be wide open, not just in the team race, but I think a lot of these individual events are also kind of up for grabs.
Yeah, I think it's going to be – I agree with you. I would just add the exception that I think that it's – for Simmons and Ankeny, who we already talked about, it is probably going to be their races to lose. In the case of Ankeny, he is the favorite absolutely in the 100, the 200, and the 400. And so you've got to think that if you're Ankeny, you're probably a little bit disappointed if you don't come home with at least 2 of those state titles. And then with Simmons being ranked first in the mile and in the 2 mile, his best time in the 2 mile is 13 seconds better than what I would think is his brother, Daniel Simmons, who comes in as second. So that's another guy I think that he's all but locked up the 2 mile, and it's just a matter of trying to get that mile is going to be pretty close.
Yeah, every year in May, BYU hosts a high school meet in Provo, and some of the Idaho schools go down there, and Jonathan Simmons won the mile at this humongous meet in Provo. So, I mean, it's pretty impressive for a 2A kid from Idaho, no doubt. Let's talk about the 2A girls. And again, the district winners may not be indicative on the boys' side. The girls' side, I think maybe it's a little more clear-cut. Your district champs were Orofino, Melba, Declo, Aberdeen, and Salmon. And I think the Melba girls are locked and loaded and ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, fresh off the state championship in basketball, I was able to broadcast the 2A girls tournament. That was such a fun team to watch. And I remember saying this during the broadcast, saying, I don't know what all spring sports these girls do, but if they do track, they're going to be really good. Well, a lot of them do track, and they are really, really good. Of course, you have the Clark sisters, Kate, and then the younger sister, Kendall. And a lot of people think that when it's all said and done, Kendall could be better than Kate at basketball. Right now, she is really excelling in track. Kendall comes in first in the triple in the whole in 2A girls, and then first in the high jump. And and that was my other note. She is first in the 100-meter hurdles, second in the her team's second in the 4x2, and her triple jump is the best in the state, 1A through 5A. Such an impressive athlete, Kendall Clark. And then her older sister, Kate, she's first in the 300-meter hurdles right now, and then she's on that 4x2 team as well.
Yeah, and that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg, because when you look at the females that won multiple events at districts, Roslyn Kazier won the 16 and 3200. Maya Young won the 100 and the long jump, and then Peyton Mills won the 2 and the 4. And so Melba really is one of those teams that I think, even if they're not at the top of the winners podium, can get enough of those placements to where the points really pile up.
Yeah, I agree. And then you talk about other girls, Brooklyn Daly, Maya Young, these other girls from Melba. You have so many athletes, and that's really what it takes to win a track state championship. You have to be competing in basically every single event, and they're competing to get first or second or third in every single event that they're in. Another athlete that I want to highlight in 2A girls, also saw her at the state tournament, Elise Kelsey from Bear Lake. She is right now first in the 1600 and in the 3200. I think she's going to, run away with both of those events. She's been an absolute stud the last few years in cross country and track. And now as a junior, I think she should be able to I want to say walk away, but she walks, she probably won't win. If just a quick jog, she should win.
Right. Yeah. And Bear Lake's got a good jumper too. Kalisha Parker, good high jumper, good triple jumper. And I want to correct earlier, Peyton Mills is from Nampa Christian. I said she was from Melba. My notes kind of ran together on the page. I wanted to talk about Orofino real quick, just because they really did well at their districts and had some interesting combinations of winners. Sydney Zawina won the 2 and the 4 and the triple jump. And then the Kessingers, you have Ruby Kessinger, who's a junior. She won the 100 and the long jump. And then Lindy Kessinger is a freshman for Orofino, and she won both hurdles races and the discus, which is kind of an unusual combination of events.
Yeah. To me, that tells you something about the versatility of an athlete. You can come out there and do a speed event, the hurdles, and then throw a disc. That's pretty impressive. That's something we'll talk about with the 3A boys as well. We see a couple of times some crossover, but that's a lot of fun. And because it's usually a totally different crowd, a lot of time you see you see basically the same throwers between shot and disc, and then you see the same people between the 100-meter hurdles and 300-meter hurdles. But to be, you become friends with the hurdlers and you get to become friends with the jumpers. So that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, you mentioned it, 3A boys. Let's move on up to the 3A level. This is one I've had my eye on really since the start of the season, because I thought this was going to be a really good race. Your district champs in 3A boys were Bonners Ferry, Fruitland, Gooding, Snake River, and Sugar Salem. And I got to tell you, I think it's a two-team race between Sugar Salem and a team that didn't even win their district in Kimberly. They lost to Gooding by 2 in that district for me, but I think Kimberly and Sugar Salem are right at the top.
Yep, I absolutely agree with you. Coming into the season, I think there's a lot of people thought it was as well. 3A is the classification I'm most familiar with as well. That's where I competed. I went to South Fremont High School, but Sugar Salem, again, walked to another district championship, must be their 500th in a row or something like that in track. But Kimberly, they have so many studs. What I think the difference is that Kimberly, the events that they're in, I think they need to win those events if they want to win, but not necessarily the case for Sugar. And what I mean by that is that Sugar is going to be spread out, and they're probably going to place in almost every single event. Kimberly, they're not going to be placing in every single event. But they do have a chance of winning 5 or 6 different events outright. And so I think if Kimberly wants to win, then the events that they're in, they need to be placing in the top 1 or 2 or 3 and if they want to win. So let's talk about some of these. I think the one that stands out above all others, you could talk about the Bear brothers, but probably is Brett Bronson. He comes in first in the 100, first in the 200, and first in the 400, second in the 800. So those 4 right in a row, just so impressive. Now, his team also, he's listed on the team in the 4x1, which is still first in the state. But I'm kind of wondering what events he's going to be competing in because that's 5 events there with 100, 200, 400, 800, and the 4x1. In the 200 and 400, he's first overall in the entire state. He's an absolute stud. And then, of course, the Bear brothers. You've seen them so many times. You got Jackson, the junior. You talk about some versatility. Listen to this. He's second in the shot put, third in the high jump, and first in pole vault. It's kind of a crazy combination. And then Gatlin Bear, the freshman, he's first in the triple and fourth in the long. So he's a great jumper. Jackson Bear and Brett Bronson, both a lot of versatility from the sprints to the mid-range with Brett, and then with Jackson, the shot put, high jump, and pole vault. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, the Bear family, their older brother Peyton Bear was the Gatorade Track and Field Athlete of the Year the last time we had a full season, and he went on to a pretty high profile college. And the background, I think, is decathlete. So I think that's why you see the versatility with the Bear family is they all like the idea of pursuing the decathlon at the next level, and that's why they're well versed in all those events. Brett Bronson won the 1, the 2, and the 4 at districts, which is really impressive. And then they've got a pretty good hurdler as well in Bridger Sheese, who is a great hurdler for Kimberly as well. You know, we talked to Kimberly track and field coach Marvin Mumm earlier this season on the Prepcast, and he said, you know, really the last 2 or 3 years at state, it's come down to us and Sugar. And what's happened is Kimberly has built up a nice big early lead in the sprints and the jumps and some of those hurdles races, he said. But then when it comes to the distance races, like Sugar is winning like 4 of the 5 spots in the mile and the 2 mile. And he said, and they just are able to surge past us at the end because of those distance races.
Yep, I absolutely agree with you. The other late events that Sugar's going to be great at are going to be the relays. Right now, they come in with the best times in the 4x2, the 4x4, and the medley. And then, of course, Kimberly, they're first in the 4x1 right now. But that 4x1 is going to be really close. That's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, I think that's why I say that. I think Kimberly, the events they're in, they need to win them. They need to maximize their points if they want to win that team state championship.
Absolutely. And then, you know, the distance races this year, I think really Owen Rogers from Gooding is one of, if not the best distance runners in 3A. And I think he was a big reason why Gooding was able to actually win districts over Kimberly. He's a great runner. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting how you mentioned Gooding won districts there, but Kimberly is still favored over them for the state championship. Kind of one interesting dynamic there.
Yeah. Other guys real quick, we're going to keep an eye on at the 3A level for boys. You know, Sugar Salem's got Brigham Dowling, who's a good distance runner. Trevin Holman in the short sprints has a chance to place. I think Vince Avila is a good sprinter from Parma. And then, you know, up north, Timberlake, for the first time in a long time, didn't win their district. Bonners Ferry actually nipped Timberlake in the team race, but I think Timberlake has a chance to finish higher at state. They've got those athletes that can place high in events like Ian Gardam in the jumps and Wyatt MacArthur in the hurdles. I think Timberlake has a chance to get some points there.
Yeah, I agree. I want to give a shout out to Carson Draper from my alma mater, South Fremont. Right now, he's kind of that top of the middle pack where he probably can place in a lot of different events in those medium to long distance where let's take a look at this. He's let's see, 3rd or 4th in the 400, the 800, the 1600, and the 3200. So he's a really, really balanced runner. He can do so many things, able to get his team a lot of points during districts. So he's going to be a fun one to watch. He could be bringing home a lot of points from those 4 different events.
Absolutely. We're getting more comments here on the shout outs. We got Andrew Ollinger, best 2A discus thrower from West Side. He was a great linebacker and an offensive lineman for the Pirates state championship football team earlier this fall, and best discus thrower in 2A. Gary Jones, one of our IdahoSports.com broadcasters. Nice job, boys. We're going to talk with Gary and some of the other baseball broadcasters on Wednesday for a state tournament preview there. We're going to be doing live videos all throughout the week here on IdahoSports.com as we get ready for championship week here in the spring sports season. And so as we're going along and you want to give a shout out to an athlete or a team, or you want us to talk about somebody, just throw it in the comments. We'll throw it up on the screen and we'll give you the shout out that you need. Sean Kane, the tennis coach at Century High, looking good. Alec, you need to wear a cowboy hat. I think he's talking about the cowboy hat that's hanging on the rack behind you. And Tri-Valley, we talked about on the girls' side, could really have a chance in the 1A competition. So let's move over to the 3A girls. Your district champions were Bonners Ferry, McCall Donnelly, Kimberly, Snake River, and Sugar Salem. I got no idea, Alec. Where do you want to start on the 3A girls?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really wide open. Of course, Sugar's still going to be one of your favorites. Just like in the boys, they're going to be great at the relays, come in with the best times, the 4x2, the 4x4, and the medley relay. Probably your biggest, your biggest ticket item, I think, are going to be watching Blair Jeffs up from Timberlake in the throws. She's one of the best throwers in the state, all classifications. She is first in shot put and discus by a long ways. So she should really just walk away with those events, come home with some really good points for her team. That'll be a lot of fun. As well, I think Fruitland, always going to have some great competitors. Emma Hillam, the junior from Fruitland, right now, great distance runner, could go home with first in both the mile and the 2 mile. Right now with the best time in the 1600, 3200. So there's kind of the typical culprits, if you would, Sugar, Fruitland, Timberlake, and there's going to be absolutely some standout athletes from some other schools. But as far as a team, I think it's Sugar, absolutely one of the favorites. Probably Kimberly is, kind of on that outside looking in. But other than that, I'm not totally sure.
Yeah. That's the thing. I wasn't, like you said, there's a lot of good individuals, but not enough to where you would say, oh yeah, this team overwhelmingly is the favorite. You mentioned Blair Jeffs, the thrower from Timberlake. She went to a couple of meets this year where she was competing against like big schools like Coeur d'Alene and Post Falls and stuff like that, and still was able to win the shot and disc a lot of times, even being one of the smaller school competitors, which is super impressive for sure. And we mentioned it just like on the boys side, Timberlake is pretty used to being the district champs in girls track, but actually it was Bonners Ferry that won the district title this year. But like the boys side, I think Timberlake actually has a chance to finish higher at state. Let's see. You mentioned Kimberly, they've got Chloe Ward, who's been really good this year. She won the 2, the 4, and the high jump at districts. They've got Brinley Wright, who's a good distance runner. And then from that district as well, Ellie Stockham, who's actually going to Idaho State University next year on a track scholarship, the senior pole vaulter from Gooding. She has been one of the top pole vaulters, not just in 3A, but in the state early on in the season. And then she also won the 100 and the triple jump. So I think Ellie Stockham is another athlete to keep an eye on from Gooding. Yeah,
one more from me is going to be Macy Lunt from Marsh Valley, the junior for the Eagles. Right now, the top sprinter, she's up by 0.2 of a second in the 100 for first, and then she is just 1/10 behind Gina Craven from Timberlake in the 200-meter dash. So she's going to be a lot of fun to watch in the sprints.
And I want to give a shout out too real quick before we move on. I went through all of the district meets, Alec, and I looked at all the athletes that won multiple events. And I think this was one of the only athletes that won 4 events at districts. And that was Kinley Brown, the junior from Teton. She won the 100-meter hurdles, the 300-meter hurdles, the long jump, and the triple jump. She was a quadruple event winner at districts, which is really hard to pull off.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's tough. You're in that conference going against all of those Sugar athletes as well. And South Fremont's in that conference as well. To be able to do that in that tough district is impressive.
Yeah, and we mentioned we think Sugar probably is our favorite team-wise. Jeressa Jackson, the junior distance runner, is probably the athlete to keep an eye on for Sugar Salem. Any other diggers you're watching?
Main thing, I'm kind of a sucker for the relays because I think they're so much fun, but I think they could come away with probably 3 first places of the 4 different relays. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely. All right, let's shift gears and move on to Class 4A competition. We had a shout out earlier to Connor Maloney, the senior sprinter from Skyline. The Grizzlies actually finished second at their district meet to Blackfoot. Your district champs were on the boys' side for 4A: Sandpoint, Bishop Kelly, Jerome, Preston, and Blackfoot. And this is why I wanted to start with the smaller levels, because I think when we get to the 4A and the 5A, the team titles are pretty decisive. I think on the boys' side, really it's Bishop Kelly's title to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, not very surprising, really. And they're going to be an absolute competitor for girls, if not the favorite in girls as well. Just so many athletes. And in track, that's what it comes down to. Athletes at every single position who can get you points.
So yeah, let's start with Bishop Kelly. What makes him so good? One of the best sprinters in the state. He's been near the top of the leaderboard, not just in 4A, but in the entire state of Idaho almost all season long. James Onanabosi, the junior, in the 1 and the 2 is going to be pretty tough to beat. Although Teo Schneider from Jerome and Dalton Munkris from Twin Falls are going to be right there to push them. Those short sprints, I think, are going to be fantastic to watch.
Yeah, when you start getting into those higher, the larger classification schools, those numbers drop down a little bit. You start to get towards that in the 100 meter, below 11, down near 10.5, and then sometimes below 10.5. Man, that 100-meter dash is going to be a lot of fun. You've got 10.65, 10.73, 10.77 from Bishop Kelly, Jerome, and Twin Falls. That's going to be a fun race. And then it's those same three in different order in the 200-meter dash, and they're very close again, 21.65, 21.74, and 21.82. Going to be a lot of fun. Those other being Teo Schneider and Dalton Munkris from Twin Falls.
Yeah, I think the short sprints are going to be the events to watch for sure. Other team, I mean, we think Bishop Kelly's going to be really, really talented. And I really do think that Jerome and Twin Falls, in terms of the team races, will be right there in terms of maybe a top 3 finish. It was a really close district, actually. District 4, Jerome won districts with 139 points. Twin Falls was only 10 points behind him at 129.5, and Canyon Ridge took third at 129. So Twin Falls literally finished half a point higher than Canyon Ridge for second place at districts. And Jerome and Twin Falls, I feel like, have the numbers where they could get placements, not necessarily win, but get those placements in the events that they need. Yep,
I agree. And I think that Bishop Kelly is going to be my favorite in most of to win the running events. If it was just track, I think they'd be my absolute favorite to win. Now, as far as the field events side of things, I think Emmett is going to it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Axel Sanchez from Emmett leads in both the shot put and the discus. And then as well in the pole vault, it's Landon Helms who leads, oh my goodness, so far ahead. He's almost 1.5 feet ahead of everybody else in the classification. Landon Helms is from Emmett. So Emmett I think they can win 3 of those field events. Someone who's a lot of fun to watch this year has been Tate Priestly from Preston. He won Tiger Grizz earlier in the high jump. He's gone 6'10" so far, the senior from Preston. He very well, if we have good weather, and things come together at the right time, we could see him break 7 feet at the state meet. Yeah, and Tate Priestly is one of those guys you talked about, Alec. He improves his mark almost every time out. It seems like, at the start of the season, he was clearing like 6 feet, and then I remember I saw him clear 6'2", and I'm like, that's pretty good. And then he has just ramped it up with each successive meet. And you're right. I think if the weather's right, he's already cleared 6'10". I think 7 feet definitely is within the realm of possibility. Axel Sanchez has thrown the discus 197 feet this year. That's the 3rd best throw in the entire nation, Alec. That's the 3rd best nationwide for Axel Sanchez from Emmett, which is impressive. And then you mentioned Landon Helms in the pole vault. He's also great in the hurdles races. So you're right. I think Emmett also has a chance to rack up some points. Yep. And then to finish things out with the jumps, you've got Braden Capin from Sandpoint coming in at 22.4. The senior leads in the long jump. And then in the triple, Peyton McManus from Minico, 44 foot 1 inch. I was a triple jumper mainly. So when I hear these numbers, you start adding some high digits onto those 40s. That is really, really impressive. Yeah. And real quick in the distance races as well, really, it seems like District 5, Shane Gard and Birch from Pocatello High. And then also I know Preston has Jepson, who's been a great distance runner as well. It seems like those distance races, it's all District 5 guys. Yeah, maybe it's something in the water. It gets warmer down there. That's what it is, Right. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's the 4A boys. I think there's going to be some really, in terms of individual performances and maybe, state records and those types of things. I think 4A boys is going to be where you're going to want to keep an eye on things like that. Let's talk about the 4A girls. We think probably Bishop Kelly. Your district champs were Moscow, Bishop Kelly, Twin Falls, Preston, and Skyline. Bishop Kelly put up 215 points at the District 3 meet. Twin Falls actually scored 217 points at the District 4 meet. So does Twin Falls have enough to push BK, or do we still think it's Bishop Kelly? I still think Bishop Kelly's the favorite. really in a lot of these, it's going to come down to not necessarily, if you're looking at Twin Falls, how can they get past Bishop Kelly? It's probably not going to be your top person in each event. What it's going to be is those events where you've got 2 or maybe even 3 people that have a chance to finish in the top 5 or 6. You need those secondary performers to perform well. And if you can get that up from Twin Falls, then you can say, hey, maybe Bishop Kelly's going to run away with a bunch of these events. But if we can have everybody at the top of their game, then we may have just enough out of pure mass, numbers to be able to get squeezed past Bishop Kelly at the end.
In terms of individuals, the conversation, I think, starts with Paige T-Kip from Bishop Kelly. She's dominated in the short sprints all year, the 1 and the 2. She's been one of the best long jumpers as well. And that's really where it starts for Bishop Kelly.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where it starts, but is certainly not where it finishes. If you look at the sprints, one thing that's just mind-blowing, if you look at the 200 meters, after Paige, you just mentioned, Jaden Rodriguez has the 3rd best time, and then 4th best time is Anna Schmatz. So you have the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th best times in the state in the 200-meter dash, all from Bishop Kelly. Now, who are they trailing? That I would like to highlight. Matasia Mangum, just a freshman from Pocatello, been running like crazy this year. She is out ahead of all those Bishop Kelly girls in the 200-meter. And then in the 100-meter dash, the freshman is in 2nd, just behind Claire Peterson from Skyline. So just a freshman, really getting a lot of points for her team, Mangum is.
Yeah, her time, 12:25 in the 100, I believe, set the new school record at Pocatello High last week at districts. And that was a record that hadn't been broken since 1987.
Wow.
Which is pretty impressive. And like you said, only a freshman. We've got another shout out here in the comments. Go Preston. Yes. Preston on the boys' side, they've got Jepson and Brecker Knapp. On the girls' side, they had a couple of multi-event winners at districts, Occasion Knapp in the shot and disc, and then Michaela Robertson swept the hurdles. So Preston has a chance as well to be in the mix for some individual spots. Maybe not in the team race, but especially because that district only had 3 teams. So in terms of representation, it's going to be really hard for District 5 to go over and pile up enough points to be in the trophy race, only because their district was so small. They didn't get to send a lot of athletes either.
Yep, absolutely. I think we had the shout out for Nick Nielsen specifically from Preston, looks like. So good luck to him. Absolutely. But yeah, I think it's kind of an interesting dynamic. Those smaller districts, I competed in one of those in high school. There's only the 3 teams. It's kind of does some interesting things where sometimes you can be maybe one of the best, but if you have someone just a little bit better than you in your district, then you might be missing out on state, or you might have to go in through an at-large bid. So that kind of thing can happen, and maybe adds a little element of unpredictability to the state meet, because you have those people coming in that you're like, oh, well, they didn't win their district. They just barely got in off that off the at-large bid. But if you have a really tough district, you may end up still placing at state, depending on, how the chips fall.
Yeah. And we talked about the sensational freshman from Pocatello, Mangum, getting a shout out here in the comments from Megan Jo Clark. Thank you, Megan, for giving the shout out. And again, if you want to give your favorite athlete or team a shout out, just do it in the comments. We'll put it up on the screen and talk about your favorite athlete, team, etc. All right, other individuals on the girls' side I'm keeping an eye on. You mentioned Claire Peterson from Skyline has done really well in the sprints and the hurdles this year. Chrissy Sanders from Mountain Home is a sophomore who's done really well in the 300 hurdles, especially this year. Also a great triple jumper. Skyla Zimmerman from Moscow won the 100 long jump and triple jump at her district meet. And then I think Tatum Richards is another, a lot of sophomores. Tatum Richards is another sophomore from Emmett who's done really well in the hurdles and the pole vault this year. Yeah,
and to go along with that theme of those younger athletes, I'm going to mention another one, a freshman, Nella Roberts from Skyline. She's been outstanding in the 1600 and in the 3200. She comes in at first, just barely in that mile. 5:15:49 for Nella Roberts. Kennedy Coons, another freshman, also from Idaho Falls, from Bonneville, is at 5:15.57. So 0.08 of a second difference between those two best times. It'll be a lot of fun to see those two coming out of the same conference, the same city, and both freshmen competing in that mile race.
Brandon Baney here with Alec Pope, breaking down all of the upcoming state track and field action. We're getting a lot of flavor from the 4A fans here. Go Hadley Humphreys, just getting better every meet from Blackfoot High School, and of course she's a great all-around athlete, awesome basketball player as well. And and here's Paul Kingsbury, our boss at IdahoSports.com. Shout out to CUNA's long and triple jump coach, Madison Kingsbury. That's of course Paul's daughter. So there you go. Let's talk about CUNA. Let's transition into the 5A ranks.
Yeah.
On the boys' side, your district champs were Post Falls, Rocky Mountain, and Rigby. Do we like one of those teams? Do we think one of those other Boise area schools that didn't win districts has a chance? What do you look at when you look at the teams?
So 5A is kind of tough. There's only the 3 conferences. Because of that, it creates this weird thing where you have basically your Boise Valley schools, and all of their meets are all against each other again and again. And you, just like other sports, you don't get to see a whole lot of competition outside of that because the 5A schools are so far apart up north and then hyper east with from Pocatello up to Rexburg. So it's tough that way, but absolutely, I think that your favorites are going to be in the men's starting is probably going to be Boise. I think they've been they have so many athletes, and then Bora as well. Just so many athletes across the board.
Yeah, I think the boys competition is a little more open than the girls. I think, like you said, Boise High looks good. They have Anders Covey, who's been really good in the hurdles this year. Bora, you mentioned Nathan Green is a great distance runner. Rocky Mountain probably has the best thrower in Gerald Lucas. He won the shot put and discus at the district meet. I was talking to Capital head coach Brian Stith a little bit about this on the Prepcast a couple weeks ago, and he said the interesting thing this year on the boys' side is the East has some outstanding individuals like Teo Johnson in the sprints from Thunder Ridge, Zach Bright in the intermediate races from Idaho Falls. And he said if those guys from the East can come over and disrupt the dominance that District 3 usually has on display, it could throw the team race into chaos.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the fun part about it. I described earlier track as democratic. What I mean by that is it allows so many different people to make a difference. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be, your very best. But that's, of course, what we're talking about right here is if some of these, Madison's got some great athletes, Rigby's got some great athletes. If they can come in and steal a couple of these top spots, it could throw the whole thing off, and not necessarily meaning that maybe Madison comes in and, wins a couple of events that we don't expect, for example. That doesn't necessarily mean Madison will win. What it could mean, though, is maybe a jumper from Mountain View or something that we thought was going to win, somebody from this Boise school, that could throw off the rankings and indirectly help another school. So that's one thing to keep your eye out on. Those upsets they're going to help that school from the competitor, obviously, but it could indirectly help that third-party school.
Yeah, so Teo Johnson comes in with the best time in the 100, but he is certainly going to be pushed, especially by Mason Lawyer from Boise, who last time I checked, he had not lost in the 1 or the 2 all season long. But we'll see. That's going to be a fantastic matchup. And then you mentioned triple jump, and what's a good mark? Eli Lawrence from Meridian has gone 48 feet 3 inches, which is that's mind-boggling for the triple.
Yeah, it's like I don't even know what to compare that to. I mean, that is such a high level. He is 4 feet past anybody else. It's Eli. The only way he could lose is God forbid, an injury. But he could just jump at 80% and probably still win this thing.
And that's why coaches, it's nice to have an athlete that's so dominant, but coaches would prefer that there's another alpha that can push your athlete. And so, that boys race is going to be interesting. On the girls race, I'll be honest. I talked to Capital coach Brian Stith, like I said a couple weeks ago, he said, the only way that the Boise girls aren't winning state is if Thanos snaps his fingers.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think you're right. They are going to be led by the freshmen. I feel like we've been saying that a lot today, freshmen and sophomores that are such great athletes. Samantha Smith, she's first in the 1600, the 3200, but then Caden Holquist, the senior from Boise, first in both hurdles. I think those are some of their, going to be their stars, but you've also got people like, Logan Smith in the 400 and the 800 who could bring them some points. And you have a lot of balance across so many events for the Boise girls.
Yeah, Sami Smith, the freshman, was already the Gatorade Athlete of the Year in cross country earlier this fall as a freshman. Definitely could be in the mix for track and field as well. And then, so we mentioned Boise team-wise probably is the overwhelming favorite. Post Falls and Highland were the other district champs. Beyond that, second and third, I think is wide open. And it just kind of depends on which individuals rise to the occasion. When we talk individuals in girls 5A track, I think we have to start with Megan Rose, the great sprinter from Capital. She's committed to the University of Utah. She'll be a sprinter for the Utes starting next season. And Coach Stith really thinks that Megan Rose has a chance to break the state record in the girls 100-meter dash. He said if the weather is right and she can get pushed by somebody in the 100, he thinks she has a chance to break the state record.
Well, I don't know who's going to.
That's the problem is that there's not really anybody in that 100 to push her, right?
Yeah, you're talking about almost 0.4 of a second difference between her and everybody else in the 100-meter dash. That's a huge amount. That feels like an eternity in a 100-meter dash. So, if somebody really steps up their game, looking at Angelica Chapman from Lake City or Audrey Smith from Boise, if somebody steps up their game, they could push her. And that probably maybe is one of the most exciting things about the state track meet is that you get to see these, all-time great by Idaho standards performances where you can break state records, things like that. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch. I'm not sure Angelica Chapman from Lake City is competing in the 1 at state. I know the 2 and the 4 are kind of her specialties, and then I think they want to kind of save her for a relay or 2 as well. And so, yeah, I think they've kind of experimented with it this year in the 1, but I'm not sure she's going to be competing in the 1 at state. That 200 between Megan Rose and Angelica Chapman, though, that's going to be like, get your popcorn ready. That's going to be wide open, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, if I was Rose, I probably would. Makes it a little easier on you if a Chapman doesn't compete in the 100, which I guess he's not going to. But as far as if you're trying to break the record, it might be kind of nice to have her along for the run. But.
And that's what Coach Stith was hoping, was that Chapman would run the 1 to push Megan Rose, but we'll have to see. Other girls that stand out to me, Sarah Carrillo in the shot put from Eagle High has been really good all season long. Abby Hancock from Rigby has a chance to place in the short sprints. And then Post Falls has a junior, Sammy Wood, who pretty much on a weekly basis has rewritten the Post Falls High record book. She continuously has broken records and then broken the record she had just set the previous week. She's reauthored the record book several times this year at Post Falls High. She runs in the 8, the 1600, and the 3200. It's going to be tough competition against those Boise girls, but it'll be interesting to see how Sammy Wood from up north in Post Falls does.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now I want to highlight the throws really quickly in 5A girls. It's going to be a really fun competition. You've got a few the same people naturally. Sarah Carrillo from Eagle, then Lily Feineke from Coeur d'Alene. Tanya Duncan is leading both of them though in the discus. Those two are first and second shot, and second or third in discus. So I think that those 3 are going to be a lot of fun to watch. Go back and forth. They're all pretty close. So any of them could push each other a little bit as they try to keep breaking each other's on that same thing, trying to, push past each other. I think that as far as, having competitors to push you a little bit farther to, break your PR, to break some sort of record, I think that could be happening maybe more than anywhere else in the throws this year.
It's going to be exciting across the board. Alec Pope, thank you for joining us for this extensive track and field preview. If you weren't able to watch it live with us on Facebook or Twitch or YouTube, it's going to be there. It's not going anywhere, so it'll be archived. You can watch it at your leisure. If you weren't able to break away in the middle of a workday to be here live with us, go back and watch it later. There's a lot of good info. Alec really does his homework, and I'm excited. The 5A and 4A competitions will be at Eagle High School Friday and Saturday. The 3A, 2A, 1A will be at Middleton High School, also Friday and Saturday. I'm excited, Alec. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Really appreciate it. Good luck to all the competitors this year.
Yeah, and hopefully we're able to talk about maybe a couple of state records were broken or some great individual performances. It's going to be fun to watch. So thanks for being with us here at IdahoSports.com, this special edition of the PrepCast. Scheduling note, this isn't the only state preview we're doing. We did high school lacrosse last week. Tomorrow night, we will be breaking down all of the state softball tournaments, 5A all the way to 1A. Myself and Lauren Jensen will be here. We're going to break down everything you need to know about state softball. That'll be tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Again, live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And then Wednesday, we're bringing together all of the play-by-play broadcasters for this year's state baseball tournaments. That's right. IdahoSports.com will be streaming every single pitch from every single state baseball tournament. And Wednesday afternoon at 4 p.m., we will have all of the play-by-play broadcasters on here. Again, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube, talking about state baseball and breaking that all down. So softball tomorrow night at 7, baseball Wednesday at 4. Mark it in your calendars. It's going to be a fun time. And again, thank you to everybody who watched us live today and interacted with us with the comments. That's what it's all about. It's about giving the fans the info they need. And that's really what makes Idaho so great, Alec, right? It's the passion and the enthusiasm from the fans.
Yep, that's absolutely right. And the other thing is that we sometimes get good weather. That's the other thing that makes this great for these spring sports. So hopefully we get good weather. Looks like it's going to be, so we can get a lot of PRs and such.
Yes, fingers crossed. Absolutely. Yeah. For Alec Pope, I'm Brandon Baney. Thanks for watching here on IdahoSports.com.